Welcome back to part 2 of this topic. We will pick up where we left off. Let's get started.
The other thing too, I think that we haven't really talked about too much with remote learning is the user experience. So if you want to create a user experience that they feel comfortable with, they don't feel stupid, they know exactly what the desired action is, about where to go next, and you want them to feel smart, right? So being able to build something that they're comfortable using, that's also motivating.
Yeah, no, we have, and instructional designers don't all talk enough about the user experience, right? And for me, that's why at Legacy Learning, we literally define what we're doing as creating learning experiences so that all of our conversations are about the experience. And they might be about the content. They might also be about user interface. What is it? What's the learner experiencing? And what are they, is that button big enough even, right? So, or is it follow the right colors? Like all that stuff matters. And so I think one of the things that it sounds like a good summary for what you just said is really be intentional, right? Even from what you said at the very beginning about getting to know your learners, like I always say that was an accidental trainer. Like I got in this field on accident and fell in love with it. And I've created a career and a business around it. I think a lot of times people accidentally do it. They don't fall in love with it. And that's why you often will see some of these like lackadaisical kind of strategies. And it's frustrating to you, I'm sure. It's frustrating to me because we really want people to shift behaviors, right? Nobody ever just wants people to take the program. Oddly enough, different podcast, but that's what we measure usually is did they take it, right? But that's not what we want. And so if we do want people to shift, we've got to tap into that motivation. And you've talked a little bit about games. I don't know if you've actually used that word, but can you talk a little bit about how gaming can actually be used as a motivator in the learning experience or remote learning experience?
Sure. Gamification and games in general, basically when you can bring elements of fun into the learning experience, that can help continue the learning process, can bring in motivation. And basically, again, you're looking at the different types of motivation, and there's different techniques that you can use to bring in different things. Like maybe you want to teach somebody how to use the system, right? Have a scavenger hunt, or collect things along the site. So, I mean, there's just different ways of building in fun and giving them meaningful choices, giving them experiences that they can use strategy or be creative, and they'll be a little bit more invested in the experience.
Yeah, there's two words of everything you just said that there's a little disclaimer we need to put out there. You said meaningful and fun. So we're not saying just do something fun or funny, like a cat knocking something off the counter that has nothing to do with the information or the behaviors, right? Which I'm sure you've seen people do that. People do that because we talk about fun. They're like, oh, okay, what's something fun? Yeah, that's fun. But then what you've done to the learner is disconnected them from the learning experience. And so we want to, because the other thing is that we haven't really talked about is that learning's naturally fun. Right? If you just leave children alone, they're going to start playing so that they learn. And they're going to keep doing that until somebody tells them, hey, don't do that. You're not allowed to do that, right? And I think a lot of times as instructional designers, we actually make learning not fun, which is mind-boggling when you think about the natural process for learning is actually fun. So we're ruining a good time. We need to stop doing that. So I love that you said that the meaningful fun and finding ways to do that, right? And I think I kind of just gave a disclaimer, but there's certain probably more cautionary tales that you've experienced. So could you share some of those? Like, what are some cautions if there's somebody listening and they're like, oh yeah, I want to incorporate fun or some additional motivation elements into my instructional design plan or process, what are some things you'd caution them against?
That's a really good question. One thing that I would say gets back to what you were just talking about. You want to make sure it's connecting with the goals of the learning, right? Yeah. So And when I say goals of the learning, I'm thinking of two things. I'm thinking about what our goals are as instructional designers. Like, I want them to be able to do X, Y, and Z by the end of this training. Like, objectives should be actionable, right? But also getting at their goals for doing this training, right? We want them to get what they expect to get out of this training. So to keep that in mind and to really think about the experience that you're creating and what is actually going to help with that experience versus what just looks like a fancy bell or whistle.
Right. Right.
Because that's just a waste of time for everybody. It's a waste of time for you to develop it. It's a waste of time for them to use it.
Yeah.
And we don't want to waste time.
At Legacy Learning Consulting, we are radicals about using your organizational learning strategy to transform and grow your business. We focus on outcome-based strategies tailored to achieve your business goals. To get results, learners need to shift behaviors. Using learning research and our years of experience, we create and implement learning experiences that shift behaviors toward your organizational goals. Since your business is unique, your learning strategy should match your company's unique DNA. We get under the hood to understand your business needs and your learners, and then develop learning solutions that target your unique needs. We focus on creating tailored learning experiences that don't just teach, they shift behaviors and create measurable impact. Through immersive scenarios and interactive experiences, we bridge the gap between knowledge and action. Our solutions help learners apply what they've learned in practical ways that drive change where it matters most, on the job. With Legacy Learning Consulting, learning isn't just a box to check. It's a strategic investment in lasting behavioral change that directly impacts your organization's success. Ready to make the most out of your learning investment and get real, measurable results? Contact Legacy Learning Consulting today, and let's design a solution that transforms behaviors and drives success.
Yeah, throughout my career, I've hated being that guy, but I've been in so many times where somebody brings something to me and they're so excited to show me that, check this new thing out. Why? And then they don't have it connect to the learning, and they're like, cool, awesome, great. But either we need to mold that into, think about our learning outcomes and mold that into there, or to your point, maybe we can mold it into like something, this is the reason they're motivated or something. But it's a difficult place to be like, yeah, but why? Because that's what we should be thinking about throughout all.
The other thing too that I would caution is really trying to think about, and this makes things very tough as a designer on the designer side, but accessibility. So because mainly our learners are going usually through a screen, they're using technology to go through our learning experiences.
Yep.
So being able to create something that the widest possible audience can use, that anybody can use, and really thinking about what that experience is going to be for folks. Like, I remember one thing we were trying to create at when I was at CMU. We thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could put in a little crossword puzzle game? And when you actually got into what that would feel like to a user, like going into the little boxes and, and then we were like, well, how's a screen reader going to deal with this? We ended up finding something completely different. But the idea behind that is just like, you don't want to create something that looks like a fun game, but the experience of playing it is not going to be fun.
Or for all, right? To your point. So when you start to add some accessibility stuff in there, the thing is that, and I think this is true of everything you said, it's like, we just got to be thoughtful about it. Like, it's not like the tic-tac-toe idea is bad. So what were we trying to do? If we discover that we can't use it, what is it that we were trying to do? Rooted in the outcomes, rooted in learning strategy, learning in learning principles, and let's find some other way to do whatever it is that we were trying to do. And, that's the thing, is that's why we do a lot of front-end planning so we can work through all that stuff, right? But then you're right, sometimes when you actually create it and use it, you're like, that's not fun. It kind of is a dull point in our module, right? So I think that's warranted. Do you have any other cautions?
I think those are the biggest ones that I've run into. I guess the other thing too is think about how you're going to measure success. If you're going to be trying all these new techniques, that's great, but you also want to make sure you have good metrics so that you know whether it worked or not. And that way you know whether to do it again in the future or if you need to come back and change it. So I guess that's the other piece.
I think that's a really great point, and it's a topic that we haven't been brave enough to tackle on this podcast yet, is metrics, right? Because I'll make a lot of enemies. I'm not really that afraid of making enemies in learning development field. I think we have a lot of ways to improve, but metrics is one of those. Like when you said measure if it's working, like the definition of that for a lot of folks is a little skewed in my opinion. Like, are people using it? Isn't necessarily the measurement, right? Is it helping with whatever the reason is that you created? And so to measure that usually isn't a standard metric that you just say, okay, yep, it's helping with motivation, or yep, it's helping achieve an outcome. You actually have to be intentional about that part too. And it's so many more.
Decide what your metrics are going to be, like, and
how to measure it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Which is that's why it's just, there's so many like challenges with that we haven't gone there, but it's something that we all deal with. The problem is too, the learning development field typically just placates that and creates superficial metrics, right? That it isn't measuring the actual thing unless you have support from leadership to be able to invest in those, because it takes time, right? And it takes money to be able to consistently measure those things. So very cool. Well, I appreciate you coming, Renee. And I just want, if there's whoever's watching, I need to say this because I used to say this to Renee and team, that when I worked at Proofpoint, I was working with the best instructional designers I ever worked with. And that's a true statement to this day. Renee was one of them. So I was excited when you were like, yeah, I'll come on the podcast. I don't know if you said it with that excitement that I just had on my voice, but I do appreciate you being here today.
I'm always happy to have conversations with you, Jason, about this.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, we talk about this kind of stuff, and it's like, it's really meaningful. One of the things we're trying to do is shift the learning development field to a place where what we're doing is meaningful, so that we have a seat at the table in organizations, because too often we're looked at like, okay, yeah, we had to hire you because we had to invest in our people, right? And so doing these kind of things and having these kind of conversations really put it out there. So genuinely, thank you for being here.
No, thank you. This was fun. And just for anybody who's listening, I mean, this is just like scratching the surface. You know, there's so much depth that can be gone into. So I hope people get encouraged and inspired and go out there and really come up with some really cool designs.
And comment. We don't have a ton of comments. Please let us know your thoughts on these conversations so we can do more and go deep into it. One of the things that Renee said when we were planning this out, she's like, so you want to do a 4-day discussion in 10 minutes. And so that's probably what we just did. So thank you very much, Renee. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Join us next time for part 2 of this topic. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more ways to make your organization strong through your learning function.